3 aRPGs enter, 1 leaves with the crown. Who will it be? Hey folks, this is Rhykker, and Path of Exile 2 just dropped a nuke of an update that also fixes the worst part of the game. Diablo 4 Season 10 is looking to be the best season that most of you will still skip. Last Epoch Season 3 sees a smooth launch into its Build-A-Boss mechanic. Who actually had the better update this week, and why? Drop your vote now. I'll give you mine in a minute. Outside of that, in this video, we'll also talk about the release date of Silksong. We'll talk about where Rod Ferguson ended up after leaving Diablo. Hint, we kind of predicted it 2 weeks ago. We'll also talk about the latest bad news about Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. Timestamps in the description, but don't forget to ring that sub notification bell to be alerted to new Saturday episodes. Kicking off with Path of Exile 2 news, we had the huge reveal of PoE 2's next big update, the Third Edict, which releases on August 29th. This update is just chock full of win after win after win. You can now use the same support gems in multiple skills. Huge meta shakeup just with that one change. Unarmed monk build is now possible. Cruel difficulty is gone. We got Act 4 plus 3 temporary mini acts to tide us over until they add Acts 5 and 6. We're getting the Abyssal League mechanic that spawns fissures and pits. A huge balance overhaul that pretty much buffs most builds. Blood Mage should now be a viable early game build. We're getting tons of new items. Reloading a crossbow or switching ammunition will no longer slow you down. They added a sprint feature for everyone. You can now log in directly into town or your hideout by holding control when selecting your character. You can trade uncut skill support and reservation gems at the currency exchange. Sure, there was no new class. People were really hoping for Druid, for instance. Also, no changes to towers in the endgame, but what we are getting amounts to so much more than what we didn't get. And perhaps the most exciting feature coming with this update is asynchronous trade. Kind of like an auction house, you will now be able to find stuff on the trade site and then just buy it without having to deal with a human being. Just go straight to their hideout, interact with their NPC, buy the item, maybe browse through whatever items they also have for sale, and then just peace out. No more messaging 20 people to buy one item. No more waiting an eternity to see if they respond, only for them to say, sorry, already sold it. No more waiting while they say, hold on, let me just finish up what I'm doing first. Now, I personally prefer to play aRPGs without engaging in trade at all, like maybe just with the friend that I'm playing with. I want the game to be balanced such that I can play without trade and not feel like I'm terribly behind people who are trading. But if I can't have that, then I want the trade experience to be not terrible. And so I'm glad that I can now engage with PoE 2's trade system. Because I went full on into the whole trade thing in PoE 1 like 7 years ago or whatever. I had all the various third-party softwares and plugins and macros, all that stuff. I'd spend hours a day trying to just be available to sell and buy and sell. I did not want to do that again in PoE 2, and I am so glad that now I don't have to. This is a trade system that I will engage with. And asynchronous trade will also come to PoE 1, assuming it's not a disaster in PoE 2. So to clarify on how it works, you have an NPC in your hideout, you give her the items you want to sell, you list their exact sale price using an in-game currency, your items get listed on the trade site. If someone finds it, they can then just port to your hideout, interact with your trade NPC, purchase the item for the listed price, plus a gold tax to discourage market manipulation. And the neat thing is that they can then browse all the items you have listed for sale. So let's say you just swapped off of a particular build and you put all of your gear up for sale in the trade house. Well, someone who wants to buy the gear for that build will basically be able to use you as a one-stop shop. Or let's say you want to buy a map from someone and then you browse their shop and see, oh, they're actually selling a ton of maps. Well, just grab their whole inventory while you're there. This really is game-changing. And just to clarify, you don't have to use this new trade system if you just want to trade the old-fashioned way. Now, these special NPC trade tabs will be called Merchant Stash tabs, and until the release of the update, you can convert your existing premium tabs into these merchant tabs, but not quad premium tabs, only regular premium tabs. If you do convert them, then the premium tab will disappear entirely in PoE 1 until they add asynchronous trade into PoE 1. GGG's old philosophy on trade was basically that it should be a friction-filled experience, let's say, in order to not make it so easy to gear up via trade relative to playing the game. It's possibly the only game design philosophy decision from GGG that I never agreed with. I can just never agree that it's a good idea to make something a deliberately unpleasant experience for players. So I'm just so glad they've changed their mind on this. I got a full video going over a summary of all the major points coming to the next PoE 2 update. Do check that out because, again, we haven't even really scratched the surface. There is so much. And if you folks have yet to buy PoE 2, they're going to be running a free weekend from August 29th to September 1st. But what are you folks most excited about? Sound off in the comments. On to Diablo 4 news, Season 10 is shaping up to be the best season that no one will play. Between the huge build shakeup, some great quality of life changes, and genuinely fun updates to Infernal Hordes, Season 10 is, once again, the best season of Diablo 4 yet. But if you don't like Diablo 4, this will not bring you back. For Diablo 4 enjoyers, the game has never been better. For those of you who are waiting for something really big to change before coming back, this is not it. And I'm seeing more and more people fall into that camp. Hype for Season 10 seems to be at an all-time low, with more and more people just done with the game until some of the promised big updates. But for those who still enjoy Diablo 4, the updated Infernal Hordes have been a ton of fun. The Chaos Waves are awesome. Maybe the novelty will wear off after, a week or whatever, but I never knew what to expect whenever it was a Chaos Wave. Each was a nice surprise. Sometimes we'd get giant worms spitting out monsters. Sometimes we'd get a whole bunch of elites coming out of random portals. Sometimes it would be teleportation circles that appeared on the ground that would allow us to zoop around the map. Like you go stand in the circle and you get yeeted over to the other portal. Sometimes there was even just an entire wave of freaking goblins spewing out, like dozens of goblins. Like they brought the vault from D3 into Infernal Hordes. Spires still seem to suck though. I tested them a bit, not extensively. Preliminary research, I still think they're not worth running. I was running a shred build, I should mention, which is a melee build, and I just think melee build plus Spire is a terrible combination because, again, the monsters don't come to you. I just don't see how they're going to make this work. But shouldn't really matter because the meta is going to be to pick the Chaos Waves whenever they appear anyway. Now, outside of all that, despite a big nerf, Hydra Sorcerer still seems really strong, so no worries for Hydra enjoyers. Season 10 overall is a buff season. We're going to be probably stronger than ever. Chaos Armor and the Chaos Perks are really shaking up our builds. If you're not sure what that is, check out my video going over the Season 10 features here. Then the test server had some nice surprises in it that were not covered in, that video I just pointed to. Like dungeon keys with active whispers now have an icon if you have them in your inventory. This is a feature we've been asking for since at least Season 7. People like to say that Blizzard doesn't listen to players, that they don't listen to feedback. That's really not the case. The reason it may appear that way is because Blizzard just takes really long to act upon feedback. This is not an excuse, this is an explanation. Because of whatever workflow pipeline they've set up, with like one team working on Season 10, the next working on Season 11, plus just the size of the teams. They just can't be agile and reactive. So things we're asking for today, we're not going to see added for at least 6 months. And for the record, I think it would benefit them and us if they could be more agile. Now, another Season 10 feature we discovered on the PTR that wasn't spoken of, boss immunity phases, gone. Gone. You can DPS your way through them now. Duriel, Harbinger, yes, even everyone's favorite, and Dariel, you can just burst through. Our prayers have been answered. And to clarify, this is not about making the game easier, it's about making it less tedious. Because when you're spending more time waiting for them to drop their invulnerability than you are spending dealing damage to them because you're damaging them so quickly, it's just annoying. It's not difficult. So this is a great change. Now, last week we spoke about Diablo boss Rod Ferguson leaving Blizzard. Another departure that happened shortly thereafter from the Diablo team. Eleni Rivera, a narrative designer on Vessel of Hatred, is moving to the Overwatch 2 team. Now, this can mean nothing, or it can mean that work on the story of Expansion 2 is complete, and therefore people are looking to find something else to work on. And speaking of Expansion 2, Gamescom has come and gone, and Expansion 2 was not revealed. I was really disappointed because with no BlizzCon this year, the next major venue where game announcements would typically be held would be the Game Awards in December. That pushes my timeline predictions on Expansion 2's release way back. We could be looking at another year, like summer 2026, before people are playing Paladin. This makes sense with Adam Fletcher having recently said that there would be more seasons, plural, before the expansion. Oh, and a final Diablo update here. For lore nerds like me, I sometimes get asked about Diablo 3's Leah and whether we can ever see her again. Recently on the Heroes of the Storm subreddit, Nathan Lutsock, producer on Diablo 3 until he left Blizzard in 2014, confirmed that Leah's soul is turbo dead. Well, his exact words were, quote, "I can tell you that the intention was that Leah is obliterated in the process of birthing Diablo." He goes on to provide delightful insight on why it was narratively important for Leah to be gone forever and not be able to be brought back. Do give his full comment a read, and if you want to learn more about the story of Diablo 3, check out my lore series. I've actually caught up to the end of Diablo 3 right before Reaper of Souls. But how do you folks feel about Diablo 4 right now? Are you gonna play Season 10? Are you waiting for the expansion or otherwise some serious update to the game? Sound off. Then in Last Epoch news, we had a smooth Season 3 launch this week. I'm having fun with Beneath Ancient Skies, which adds Chapter 10 of the storyline, 17 new zones, dozens of new enemies, and the Primal Hunt season mechanic, where you build your own boss. I love just adding as many heads as quickly as possible whenever I can. Player counts are looking good. Going into this weekend, we're looking at concurrent player numbers peaking at about 74,000, so probably going to rise before Monday. And that's already higher than the Season 1 peak of 71,000. I don't think we're going to beat Season 2's peak of 150,000, but hey, it's still not bad. Beating Season 1 is an achievement in itself. The devs also revealed this week that they've reached 3 million copies sold for the game. Around launch in February 2024, they'd reached 1 million sales, and they hit about 2.1 million total players within 30 days of launch. So, assuming that translates into copies, to have picked up another 1 million sales over the year and a half since launch, that's great. But how do you folks feel? Are you playing Season 3 or are you skipping it? What build are you going for? I'm leveling with the Warlock, but I want to swap to Lich in the endgame, Melee Lich. So now that we've spoken about all three games, let's quickly address who has the best update. Well, even though PoE 2's update isn't out, the sheer amount of content packed into this update simply makes it undefeatable. Yes, Last Epoch adds Chapter 10, but PoE 2 adds Chapter 4 plus 3 mini-chapters. PoE 2 adds more bosses and items than both D4 and Last Epoch combined. PoE 2's League mechanic adds more content and crafting to the game than the other two. Now to clarify, none of this means that Last Epoch Season 3 is bad. GGG just really cooked this time around with an absolutely massive update. And even though this probably is Diablo 4's biggest season update, again, it's just tiny compared to PoE 2. In other news, we have an official release date for Silksong, the sequel to 2017's Hollow Knight, September 4th. The game has been in development for 7 years, and when asked by Bloomberg why it's taken so long, the two-man dev team said that games take a lot of time to make when you're a small team, and that they were, frankly, just having fun along the way. Silksong began as an expansion for Hollow Knight, but through feature creep turned into a full game. And they just couldn't resist adding more and more and more and more, and 7 years later, here we are. They revealed the game sold a staggering 15 million copies. That makes it one of the top 10 best-selling indie games of all time. So they certainly weren't hurting for cash over these 7 years, and so they could allow themselves to take their time and, not rush the game out. There was no behind-the-scenes drama, nothing went wrong with development to cause delays, and we didn't hear any dev updates over the years because, according to them, quote, all we could really say is, we're still working on it, and they kind of felt that would just annoy people. Almost 5 million people have wishlisted Silksong on Steam, making it the most wishlisted title on the platform, with Battlefield 6 hitting second place at under 3 million. We also learned from Bloomberg's Jason Schreier that the devs don't plan to send out early codes for the game. They thought it would be unfair to their Kickstarter backers if game critics got to play before them. And I disagree with this logic. I applaud their intent. I don't think they're trying to be malicious here and not allowing negative reviews to come out or anything like that. But I do think it is silly to not allow game critics who are paid to review video games to do their job, which is to help inform customers whether this product is worth buying. People will be looking for reviews on day one. There is an expectation that there will be reviews available on day one. There will be demand for reviews on day one, and there will be no reviews because no review copies went out. But anyway, are you folks hyped for Silksong? Do you want me to cover this game? Sound off in the comments. Now, we mentioned Rod Ferguson earlier. In my video where I talked about Rod announcing his departure from Blizzard, I kind of joked that he may end up joining the BioShock 4 team to help that game's troubled development. Well, this week it was announced that Rod Ferguson has joined the BioShock 4 team to help that game's troubled development. Back in 2019, 2K announced the opening of developer Cloud Chamber and a new BioShock game. Now, all these years later, after a recent internal review that failed to impress executives at 2K, the studio head of developer Cloud Chamber was let go. And since then, as per Bloomberg, more than 80 people were also let go. That's roughly 30% of the Cloud Chamber team. 2K confirmed that there was downsizing. BioShock 4 will also allegedly be delayed from a previously planned release date of late 2026/early 2027 as they rework the game. So now Rod Ferguson is the new franchise head, which includes overseeing BioShock 4 as well as the in-development Netflix movie. And this isn't even the first time Rod has come in to save a struggling BioShock game. In 2012, he joined the BioShock Infinite team and turned that game into a success. Many of the team members expressed later on that they fully believed that without Rod, the game would have never shipped. I think that's actually where Rod started to first develop his reputation as a closer, as the person you bring in to save a struggling game and get it released. I know people have been dooming about him on Diablo 4, and I really don't understand why he's kind of become the scapegoat. I guess he's just the most public figurehead of Diablo 4, but people seem to ascribe game design decisions onto him when, he's not telling the team how to tune drop rates or what new items to add to the game. His role is management and production. It's establishing deadlines and development pipelines and ensuring that the team operates like a well-oiled machine. He's not the guy saying, hey, don't add set items. Now, while we didn't get a reveal of a Diablo 4 expansion at Gamescom, there were still some cool announcements at Gamescom, like the reveal trailer of Warhammer 40k Dawn of War 4. Definitely one of my highlights. They seem to be going back to the roots of the genre with Dawn of War 1 style base building. They're introducing the Adeptus Mechanicus as one of the 4 playable factions. They're also bringing back Last Stand mode. There's going to be over 70 missions across 4 campaigns with co-op. There's also 3v3, 2v2, and 1v1 PvP. And this game is not being developed by Runic, but instead by King Art Games, who made Iron Harvest, which I've heard good things about. And speaking with PC Gamer, the game director expressed that He knows that overwhelmingly their players want single-player content and campaign, which is why they put such a big focus on that in Dawn of War 4. And I think that's the right move. Dawn of War was never trying to become the next big esport. 40k fans love lore and story, and Dawn of War serves them well. In our last story, we got some upsetting news about Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, which is set to release on October 21st. The game will launch with 6 playable clans, but 2 of those clans will be locked behind a $22 paywall. Now, picking a clan in Vampire the Masquerade is kind of like picking a class in other games. It determines your playstyle, and what's worse is the choice of clans to lock behind the paywall. One is La Sombra, which isn't so bad, but the other is Toreador, which is a baffling choice because they're basically these stereotypical Anne Rice seductive vampires. So it would be like locking the wizard class behind a paywall in Dungeons & Dragons. This game has had a very troubled development over the years. That's pretty much all the news coverage for this game has been over the years. It's just bad things going on. So now to come out of the gate, locking 1/3 of your clans behind day 1 DLC, it's not a great look. I think the VTM tabletop game is up to like 14 clans in it at this point. The first Bloodlines video game released with 7 playable clans, so you know, it was kind of expected that we would get DLC with more playable clans, you know, in the future. But when that DLC hits on day 1, it's like they're not even trying to hide the fact that this is content they are cutting just to sell to us. And again, factions are just such a core part of the identity of Vampire the Masquerade. Not only are they releasing with fewer clans than the first game, if you don't pay extra, you actually have access to less than half the clans in the first Bloodlines game. It almost feels as though the publisher knows this game will fail and wants to get as much day 1 money as possible before the House of Cards comes crumbling down. I really hope this isn't the case. I really hope the game is good. But what do you folks think? Is this game still a day 1 buy for fans, or a wait for reviews kind of thing? Or a wait for a Steam bundle that is heavily discounted kind of thing? Sound off in the comments. Because that's going to wrap up this video, but do be sure to check out last week's video in which we covered the latest on Visa and MasterCard bullying Steam. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to join Rhykkers Raiders for more gaming content.